This content contains explicit material and is not suitable for younger or an impressionable audience. Discretion is advised. Some parts are reenacted for clarity.
Are you afraid of clowns? If you are, you're not alone. Today we'll be exploring the dark and sinister world of killer clowns and the reasons behind our instinctive fear of them. Chester's childhood was not an easy one. He grew up in a broken home, with a father who was an alcoholic and a mother who suffered from severe mental illness. His parents often fought and screamed at each other, leaving young Chester feeling scared and alone. As a child, Chester played dress-up with an old clown suit he found in his grandmother's attic. It made him feel safe. He was fascinated by the clowns. He loved their bright colors and funny antics. When his father was passed out drunk on the couch, he would sneak out to the pier. He'd spend hours watching them perform, dreaming of one day joining their ranks. When Chester was 10 years old, his mother was committed to a mental institution, leaving him and his father to fend for themselves. His father became even more abusive and neglectful, often leaving Chester alone for days on end. Desperate for attention and affection, Chester put on his clown makeup and costume, hoping to one day become a performer himself. He spent hours practicing his routines, perfecting his tricks, and honing his skills. On Chester's 18th birthday, he scraped up all his courage and waited for his father to come home. He sat at the kitchen table for hours, all dressed up, waiting. At 11 p.m., he heard the door open, and his dad stumbled in, drunk. He pressed play on his boombox. Loud carnival music began to play. Chester danced and juggled his little heart out. His father stood there for a few seconds, stunned. Then his face grew a grimace, and his eyes turned black, a feature Chester had seen many times before. His father kicked the boombox off the table, slapped the red nose off his face, and yanked the wig off his head. "Go to bed, you fucking faggot." Frustrated and disillusioned, Chester began to spiral into a deep depression. He turned to alcohol to numb his pain, spending all his time alone, holed up in his rundown bedroom, surrounded by empty bottles and discarded makeup. As Chester grew older, so did his anger. He'd spend his days drinking and juggling pins. He never took off his makeup anymore. He couldn't stand the sight of his own face. One night, more drunk than usual, he put on his clown costume and armed himself with a machete. He set out to exact revenge on the world that wronged him. And so began his reign of terror, a twisted rampage of murder and mayhem, which would leave the small town in fear for years to come. Chester's first victim was a young girl who was walking home from a friend's house. She barely saw him coming as he emerged from the shadows in his full clown costume. His face was painted white and black. Tears ran down his cheeks. He held a machete in his hand, glinting in the moonlight. The girl tried to run away, but it was too late. Chester raised his weapon and brought it down with a sickening thud, severing her head from her body. As the days went on, more bodies began to pile up. Each victim met their end in a different way, but all were marked by the twisted, clown-like signature that Chester left behind. Some were found with their faces painted in grotesque clown makeup, while others had balloons tied around their necks like macabre party favors. One particularly gruesome scene involved a family who had been brutally murdered in their own home. Chester had broken in during the night, tiptoeing through the house in his clown shoes, until he found each family member in their respective bedrooms. He had taken his time with each kill, savoring the fear in their eyes as he slowly ended their lives. When the police arrived on the scene, they found the family's bodies arranged in a twisted tableau. Neighbors said they saw a clown in the center, his arms outstretched like a twisted ringmaster. The town was gripped by fear, and parents kept their children indoors at all times. Some swore they could hear the sound of clown laughter echoing through the streets at night. Others claimed to have seen a clown standing in the shadows outside their window. As the body count rose, the police were at a loss. They had no leads, no suspects, and no idea where to even begin looking for the killer clown. Chester reveled in the chaos and terror. He knew he was untouchable. He had become a boogeyman to the town's residents. One day, a disheveled man walked into the sheriff's office. He claimed to have a son who was fascinated with clowns. He tried to beat it out of him, but he didn't think that it worked. When asked how old he was and where he lived, the man answered, "I'm not sure. I think he's 23. And last I've seen him, he lived at my house. I haven't seen him in a while. I think he left." A few deputies drove down to the man's house. When they arrived, they found him sitting at his kitchen table, surrounded by empty bottles, still wearing clown makeup. A bloody machete laid still next to him. He put up no resistance as they arrested him. He had achieved his twisted dream of becoming a clown. It was well worth the cost. As the trial approached, the town braced itself for the gruesome details of Chester's killings to be laid bare. But to their surprise, Chester refused to speak. He simply sat in his cell, his face expressionless, his eyes hollow. And when the verdict was finally handed down, he didn't even flinch. He was sentenced to death. But to the town's residents, it felt like a hollow victory. They knew that the memory of the killer clown would linger for years to come, haunting their nightmares and reminding them of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly peaceful town. We've all heard a scary clown story. But where did it originate? Evidently, it all started with the British clown, Joseph Grimaldi. His family was a part of Commedia dell'arte, was a popular form of theater that emerged in 16th century Italy. It was a type of improvised comedy that featured stock characters with recognizable traits and mannerisms, often wearing masks or makeup to emphasize their roles. One of the most beloved characters is the clown. Joseph started clowning when he was a toddler. He would perform with his father, who would beat him on stage. The audience thought it was funny, and a part of the act, Grimaldi, at an adult age, became known as the King of Clowns. However, he had a different vision for this character. When he began to gain attention for his work, he decided to take the character in a new direction, replacing the naturalistic look to something more grotesque. Initially, the clown was portrayed as a rustic fool, dressed in tattered clothing and naturalistic makeup. He was often the butt of jokes, ridiculed by the other characters for his ignorance and naivete. In 1701, Grimaldi made his debut at Sadler's Wells Theater. He got on stage wearing conspicuous makeup and bizarre clothing. His costume was strange and unsettling, with childlike body adornments superimposed over an adult body. It was a move that defied explanation, and it caused many to question why adults would willingly infantilize themselves and dress in such peculiar clothing. Grimaldi's outfit was a visual spectacle with spangled, flamboyant colors that competed with the Harlequins for attention. The effect of Grimaldi's performance was profound, forever changing the perception of clowns. He transformed the character from a humble, naturalistic figure into a strange, archetypal nightmare. The grotesque makeup and bizarre clothing became the hallmark of the clown, unsettling audiences and creating a sense of unease. Despite the unsettling nature of his performance, Grimaldi was celebrated for his art and his legacy as the king of clowns continues to this day. His influence played a huge role in the evolution of the clown into the modern-day killer clown, a figure that inspires fear and anxiety in many people. At the end of his life, he became a drunk. The abuse by his father and the loss of his son and wife at an early age had caught up with him. After several suicide attempts, he went to see a doctor for his depression. The doctor told him to go to the theater or go see Grimaldi on stage. That would certainly lift his spirits. He gave the doctor a confused look and said, "I think not." One major influence on the fear of clowns was the emergence of the killer clown figure in the 70s, when a serial killer named John Wayne Gacy dressed up as a clown to lure and murder young men. Born in Chicago in 1942, Gacy had a troubled childhood with a distant and abusive father and a close but overbearing mother. As a young man, he worked as a shoe salesman and was involved in local politics. Gacy eventually became a Democratic precinct captain. However, behind the facade of a successful and upstanding citizen, Gacy had a dark and disturbing side. He was arrested in 1968 for sexually assaulting 2 teenage boys, but for some reason, the charges were dropped. Over the next decade, Gacy would continue to molest and assault young men and boys, often luring them to his home under the guise of offering them work or a place to stay. In 1978, the police finally caught up with Gacy when they discovered the decomposing bodies of several of his victims buried in the crawl space under his house. In total, Gacy would confess to murdering 33 young men and boys, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. Gacy was known for his dual persona. On the one hand, he was a successful businessman and civic leader. On the other hand, he was a sadistic killer who often dressed up as a clown to get close to his victims. He called himself Pogo the Clown and would perform at local events and kids' parties, using his clown persona to gain the trust of his victims. Gacy was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death in 1980. He was executed by lethal injection in 1994, and his case has since become a notorious example of the darkness of human depravity. His heinous crimes sparked a widespread fear of clowns, and many people began to view them as creepy and sinister figures. The media has also played a role in perpetuating this fear.
New details.
I'm terrified of clowns, so I hope it doesn't happen to me.
An elementary school on alert after parents reported seeing 2 clowns just lurking around the campus. Our 10 News reporter Bree Steffen is in La Jolla at Bird Rock Elementary School. And Bree?
In the last few decades, horror movies such as Stephen King's It and Twisty the Clown.
I thought, I'm so dumb. I can't even kill myself.
Featured terrifying clown characters, cementing the clown's place as a figure of terror in pop culture. The fear of clowns has also been linked to the uncanny valley effect, a psychological mindset that occurs when something appears almost, but not quite, human-like, creating a sense of unease or discomfort in the viewer. It refers to the point on a graph where an increase in human likeness leads to a decrease in likability or comfort, creating a valley in the graph. The uncanny valley effect is often seen in robotics or AI, where the appearance of a robot or virtual character becomes increasingly human-like, but not quite enough to fully replicate human appearance and behavior. As a result, the viewer may feel a sense of revulsion or discomfort towards the robot or virtual character. In the context of clowns, the uncanny valley effect may occur when a clown's exaggerated features and unnatural appearance become almost, but not quite, human-like. This can trigger a sense of unease in some people, as their brain struggles to reconcile the clown's appearance with their expectations of human appearance and behavior. Finally, the fear of clowns can also be linked to the inherent fear of the unknown or unfamiliar. Clowns are often associated with the circus, a world that is unfamiliar and potentially frightening to many people. The loud music, bright lights, and unfamiliar smells of the circus can all contribute to a feeling of unease and anxiety. So, if by now you don't have a healthy fear of clowns, I'm sure that today's story will push you right over the edge. It's about members of the fan club of a band called Insane Clown Posse, or ICP for short. It's a self-proclaimed hip-hop group that embodies a genre called horrorcore, or psycho rap. Their way of entertainment is to put shocking and aggressive lyrics to a hip-hop beat. Here's an example. I quote, "My axe is my buddy. I bring him when I walk. Me and my axe will leave your head outlined in chalk. My axe is my buddy. He always makes me laugh. Me and my axe cut bigot spinal cords in half. My axe is my buddy, and when I wind him back, me and my axe will give your forehead a butt crack. My axe is my buddy. I never leave without him. Me and my axe will leave your neck a bloody fountain." Yup, that's what we are dealing with, folks. Now, the thing that shocks me is that they have an enormous following. This sort of fan club, I guess you would call it, consists of juggalos or juggalettes if you're a female. For reasons I couldn't figure out, they also refer to their peers as ninjas. Whenever the Insane Clown Posse goes on tour, the juggalos follow the ICP from venue to venue, very much like the Deadheads would follow the Grateful Dead around in the 80s. The juggalos would make an encampment close to or on the venue, where they would have a weekend full of love, drugs, family, acceptance, and freedom. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Most of them paint their faces white, like their heroes, the front men of ICP. They would wander around, and on the beat of "Me and my axe will give your forehead a butt crack," profess one and others' love and acceptance. Here's a clip of a juggalette who will explain the dynamics of their little group.
As far as it goes, first off, my opinion on what a juggalo means, some would call it, is someone who don't give a fuck. People who are kind of outcasts, never really got along with anyone, but they don't really care. Big family for outcasts, that's what it is.
Now there's a lot to unpack in that little clip. It sums up to this. The followers of the Insane Clown Posse are made up of the socially unaccepted, the outcasts, the meek, and the downtrodden, who will eventually inherit the world. But they don't really care. They are one big happy family. If a juggalo or juggalette meet each other in passing, they will call out to one another. The chosen phrase is whoop, whoop.
You gotta help me out, brother.
All right.
Whoop, whoop!
Whoop, whoop!
There we go.
Family!
Whoop, whoop. This means as much as good morning, good afternoon, how are you, have a nice day, etc. Okay, now let's get to the story. The sad, sad story of 21-year-old Jessica Rea Sacco. Jessica, who had grown up in a loving but large family, knew what it was like to fight. From a young age, she had to battle her 9 siblings for her mom's attention. After puberty, she fought the demons of depression and bipolar disorder. Jess, who was basically starving for attention, did not have the social skills to go out and mingle. Her mental disorders had made her insecure about, well, everything. So Jess found her bliss on the internet. Here, she could pose as her true self. I'm making air quotes with my fingers. Jessica, obviously unaware of the many faces of the internet, one being a playground for predators, had decided to post her profile on a dating app.
I'm very outgoing and sweet, kind-hearted, caring, passionate, compassionate, and I love learning new things. I love animals and going to the beach and taking a walk. I like cooking good and delicious meals. In my spare time, I like to read, write down my thoughts and my poetry. I love playing video games and doing puzzles. I'm also family-oriented. I love kids and I love helping others. Me being an open ear to others are what makes me a good person. I'm an understanding person as well and try to help solve problems. I'm talented and intelligent too. I do not take bullshit and no drama or whining. You cross me, you will wish you never did. If you don't, you're good.
That, combined with an AI-altered profile picture, responses came flooding in. Now Jess bided her time. She had recently gotten out of a bad and abusive relationship. She had fled to her maternal home, where her mother, Sue, despite of their troubled relationship, had welcomed her with open arms. Sue took her in, got her back on her meds, and after a while, Jessica seemed to be back on track. So when Jessica voiced her desire for independence, Sue found and paid for a little duplex in Urbana, Ohio, 20 minutes from her house. With Sue's help and Jessica's disability checks, she could assert her independence without the pressure of the real world. She could focus on healing. Sue, fully aware of her daughter's kind but somewhat naive nature, had only one stipulation: no live-in boyfriends, and Jessica agreed. But nights were long and lonely, and with her phone as her only companion, she soon found her way back to the dating sites. As likes and smiley faces rolled back into her life, one profile stood out.
I believe in God, Sangria-La, and the Dark Carnival. I'm the proud father of 4 wonderful kids. I may not open up right away with people because they usually don't ask the right questions. My life is an open book, but I don't mention my life story unless it's a person in need or fam that needs help keeping their hatchet high. I'm a 13-year-old wicked clown who takes a psychopathic views, beliefs, and music very seriously. And if you don't like it, then you can fuck off. I'm honest and blunt, but very true to the woman I love. I don't play petty high school bullshit. So if you expect sympathy over dumb shit, you may not get it from me unless I know you well enough to swing a hatchet for. Whoop, whoop, MMFWKCL.
Now, I wouldn't necessarily find this an appealing profile, but Jess seemed to differ and found herself drawn to this 25-year-old self-proclaimed Marine, Matthew Puccio. It was uncanny the way that their profiles lined up. They were both fans of the Insane Clown Posse. They were both young adults who came out of a bad relationship. After a few months of posting, texting, and FaceTiming, they became aware that they both struggled with bipolar disorder. Now, a little side note here. While it might be good to share some interests like pottery or bird watching, it is a very, very bad idea for 2 people with mental disorders to shack up. Alas, their mental state restricted to understand this simple premise. So, as a few months passed, it was finally time for a meet and greet. Matt proposed to drive from Texas to Ohio, and just couldn't be more excited. When Matt finally arrived, Jessica's doubts and despair gave way to unicorns and honeysuckles. He was handsome, intelligent, and most important of all, devoted all his time to her. Of course, he didn't have a job this far from home, but that didn't matter. Jessica's disability checks could cover it. Sue was making rent, and she knew, coming from a family of 9 siblings, where 1 can eat, 2 can have dinner. And yes, her duplex was tiny, a small living room with an attached kitchen, 1 bedroom, and a bathroom that barely held a bathtub, toilet, and sink. But it didn't matter. They were living off the fruits of love. There was no need for privacy or independence. Their days were spent listening to ICP, drinking wine, and smoking pot. And it was great. In this state of euphoria, they both decided that they didn't need their meds anymore. Their happiness had fought and won the war. As months went on, and it seemed to naturally progress to the autumn of their honeymoon, they slowly turned and sought a little independence. Nothing big, updating their social media, posting pics of them both in clown makeup, rekindling old friendships and changing their marital status. They were now Juggalo and Juggalette, Facebook married. The whole ICP community received it with applause. Matthew found his old friend from back in the day, Andrew Forney. And what were the odds? He was a fellow Juggalo. Some texting went back and forth, and what do you know, Andrew and his wife Candace, both 25, were living the good life. They had both rejected society and were on the ICP train, and were not far from Ohio. Well, with Thanksgiving around the corner, how could the stars align more perfectly? Isn't it weird that one would reject society but still hold on to ancient traditions? Anyhow, Matt invited his dear friend to come visit Urbana. There was a pickle, though. He knew Jess was perfectly happy with their twosome and had no desire for visitors. So Matt figured it's easier to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. The anticipated ring at the door startled Jess. Matt greeted Andrew and his wife Candace with sincere surprise. They had agreed that it would be better to cover the visit with a blanket of surprise rather than it being what it was, a planned action. Andrew had confided in Matt that their live free or die persona was somewhat born of necessity. They were living in the basement of the parents of Candace, and things were tense. Matt, by now longing for a familiar face, assured them that there would be a place for them in their 1-bedroom duplex. I just want to put a reminder out there. By now, both Jessica and Matthew have been off their meds for 2 months. Okay, so Andrew and Candace Forney had stayed a week for Thanksgiving. Jess wasn't thrilled about it, but they would only stay a week, and even if she and Candace didn't see eye to eye, they were fellow Juggalos. You don't turn your back on family, however so fucked up. 2 days after the Forneys left, the black creeper van once more approached the small duplex. As Matt helped unload the few possessions that the Forneys had, Jess screamed at them to leave and never come back. Now, if I were Andrew, I would giddy up and go. And although, as far as I know, they were fully in charge of their faculties, they did not. Despite the protest, they planted their heavy selves on Jess's couch. So now, 4 people were living in a 1-bedroom duplex. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be a pickle if these 4 people were related, but we are talking about 2 people with untreated mental disorders and 2 complete strangers who, as it seems, are down on their luck. I believe the terminology for them is leeches. But hold on, it gets worse. The favorite pastime of the Forneys is to go to the local library. When I read that, I thought, They are intellectuals. Wrong. What I found out is that the library has an open door policy, a favorite hangout for bums and the homeless, or juggalos for that matter. They bypass the books full of wisdom altogether and with the determination of a dog in heat, head for the computer room to play Dooms of Dragons or an equally silly game. This is where they meet Christopher Wright and his girl, Sharon. And if faith itself is taunting the unaware. Chris is a member. He carries the Insane Clown Posse tattoo on his arm. Well, needless to say, Andrew recognizes a fellow member, and they strike up a conversation. Andrew notices that Chris has bought another hour of internet at the library and is in a hurry to go back to Jess's place. He finds Matt, surprise, surprise, on his phone. He convinces him to come to the library with him because he has found a potential family member. Now you're thinking, an Insane Clown Posse family member. No, I told you, it gets worse. Let me run this name by you again. Matthew Starr, Double R, Puccio. I know it sounds like a bad mafia movie, but that's his name. Andrew and Matt and many of their drug-fueled nights had an epiphany. They were going to set up a franchise of the mafia in Ohio. I mean, after all, Matthew's family was the head of the Sicilian mafia. Surely that would grant him permission.
Who's your cousin?
The godfather of the Italian mafia.
What's his name?
Giovanni Guerrero.
The godfather of the Italian mafia. This poor, dwindling fool had somehow convinced his fellow juggalos and himself that because of his relations with the mafia, he would head a new branch of the mafia in Urbana, Ohio. They were going to start small. They would grow tobacco in the backyard, dry it, and then get one of those little machines to roll cigarettes. The girls would package them, and they would ship them off to New York, where the profits would be astronomical. The genius of this is baffling. Now, why didn't I think of that? Okay, in the meantime, Matt joins Andrew to fetch Chris from the library. Again, Jessica is unaware. Once at the library, Andy, Matt, and Chris instantly fall in love like only a true juggalo could. Chris confesses to some crimes in the past. Done some time in shit, and in Matt's mind, he's found a capo for his little crime family. Now, if only we could get rid of that goody two-shoes, squeaky wheel called Jessica. Matt invites Chris and his girl, Sharon, back to the house. And guess what? That happened to be in between housing. No problem. We are fellow juggalos. We're ninjas. The more the merrier. So now the house built for one holds 6 people. Total strangers, mind you. Now Jess, off her meds, in a hostile environment, is losing her shit fast. At home, her mom Sue keeps an eye on her Facebook and notices a shift. Listen to how, in a few weeks, a sunny day turns into a Cat 4 hurricane.
Where there once was gray, now color has come to stay. The dark skies have opened up. Whoop, whoop to all the ninjas out there. Some people need to realize when they are no longer welcome. There are people in this world that I don't trust or care for. Feeling alone. Pissed off beyond belief. That's when I am in a very snappy and dangerous mood.
The once happy posts have turned gloomy. There's no cause for alarm yet. She is used to the shifting moods of her daughter. Sue wonders if she's off her meds. So she drives up to the house and confronts Jessica. Before she gets out of the car, Jessica comes running out. "What are you doing here?" she asks, desperate to keep her out of the house. After all, they agreed on no live-in boyfriends. Now the house occupies 6. Matthew follows from the front door and chimes in. "Jessica is an adult. You have no right," he yells. After some relentless arguing, Sue gives Jessica an ultimatum. You can choose to come with me, or you can stay with Matt, and I will wash my hands with you. Sadly, Jess chooses Matt. As the days progress, the situation becomes untenable, where for a few months, the little duplex was filled with joy. Days now consist of dread, and for now, passive aggression. The 5 guests, who all have no jobs, nowhere to go, and no prospects, sit around, play with their phones, of course, listen to ICP, and text each other while they are in the same room. That would give the sane among us anxiety. They text about how annoying Jess is and how they would be better off without her.
She's so annoying. Can she stop whining already?
Hey, dude, keep your chick in check.
Someone needs to chill the fuck out.
The 5 of them frequent the library to talk trash and scheme their little mafia family. For Jess, on edge and plagued with insecurities, this is a final straw. I'll let Chris tell you what happens next.
All right, what's your full name?
Christopher Joseph Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Okay, here's what's going on. I need to talk to you about this.
I figured that.
Yeah.
I got one thing to say. I don't mind telling you what I heard, what was done. Mm-hmm. I'm just afraid for me and my girl.
I understand.
You get what I'm saying?
You afraid he's going to come after you?
Let's just put it this way. After all this was done, he said that was number 236.
Okay, and
I think that's bullshit, but if you can take somebody's life that you so-called loved, or love, what am I?
He's locked up.
Alright, well, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What am I?
Right.
I'm like...
right.
That's the only thing. I don't mind helping.
Like I said, we're here. I just want to find out your side of it. I just talked to your girlfriend. She told me what happened.
She's not under arrest, right? I'm going to do it. Am I going to be arrested for this?
I'm going to tell you this. Here's what I got to do. I got to talk to you, and then I got to call my lieutenant, and I got to find out what's going on. I don't know what all's going on yet. Why don't you just start from the beginning?
Basically, I was at the library. I met Andrew and his wife, Candace. We were talking. We all listen to ICP. So I have a tattoo of ICP on my arm. He said, "So you're a Juggalo?" And I said, "Yeah, kind of." Well, not like I listen to the music. I like them. I wouldn't consider myself a full Juggalo, but I guess because I listened to what they considered it. So we started talking. They said, "Well, Matt, you get along just fine with. He listens to ICP continuously." So they left the library. So I was like, whatever. So half the stuff he was saying about that, I didn't believe. Sometime, I don't think it was that night, the night we met him, we stayed a couple nights there. We slept on the floor. I don't know exactly I can't tell you what day that it happened. He called me in a room. He had a problem with her, I guess, out back. He intercepted a message from Giovanni from Sicily that said that she was trying to get him killed. Don't know how true it was. I seen the message on his phone, but I don't know how true.
What did the message say?
It was basically something that from an email. It was an email message that I can't take Matt anymore. I don't even know if it was from her, so I don't know. But that came through. Then him and her went in the back room to talk with the door shut. Me, Andrew, Candace, and Sharon were up in the front room. I was playing on the 2 desktop computers that were up there. He called me in the room. There was a hole here with a pool of blood. Her shirt was lifted up like under her boobs, and there was a pool of blood. He says, "I told you if I ever have a problem, I handle it myself." And she's sitting there, she's feeling cold, this and that.
What is she saying?
She's barely talking. Like she was talking more to him. And when I seen the blood, I have a weak stomach. That got me really queasy, so I left the room. He called me back in, I came back in, and she was, I guess, going in and out, like not of consciousness, but she was just rambling.
Sure.
You couldn't understand what she was, like I'm talking to you now, you can hear the words out of my mouth.
Right.
I couldn't make half the sentences she was saying.
Right.
So he told me that he said something about, he goes, The only reason I did, he's telling her everything he's doing. The only reason that I stabbed you, that wasn't to put you out of your misery. He told her that. He said that was just to make you weak. And I don't get that one. But he told her to make her weak. Then he says, I am going to put a bag and suffocate you. He told me to leave the room again, because I'm not, first off, I don't want to see that. Mm-hmm. I should have called you guys, but I was afraid. Mm-hmm. He already stuck her with a knife once. What's to say you guys will make it there and I'll be the second one laying there? Right. You know what I mean? I got 6 kids.
Let me interrupt for a second. 6 kids. We heard Matthew has 4. Andrew also has 4. I want to propose the following. How about a mandatory government-funded program that makes every person take a parental test? And if you fail this test, we go medieval on your ass. We reintroduce the good old chastity belt until you pass the exam. Let's see if we can get that through the House and the Senate. Just a thought. Okay, back to Chris.
Plus, possibly one away. They said she's not, but... So, we leave the room, we hear a little bit of, I guess, muffled noise.
You mean like somebody talking?
No, I think like her being suffocated or whatever. I didn't know what it was. Okay. Exactly. I didn't know if he did something different, whatever. Supposedly, he coached her into putting the bag over her head.
Do you think she was in any kind of shape to do that?
The love that she had for him, possibly. I mean, I don't think she physically could have done that.
Okay.
She was, the way she was right here, I don't think so. Like, she was just laying on the bed, like, laying there. She wasn't moving much. Her head was moving, but I don't think she'd actually have the strength to put a bag and hold it. And plus, I've done it myself just to get a buzz, put my hands there to make myself do it. You don't go out. You let go before. So he had, I guess, scratches on his arm from her fighting, I guess, back. Then he called us in the room, me, my girl, Andrew, Candace, all seen the bag tightly, just she was laying there lifeless.
What kind of bag are you talking about?
Walmart bag or a price rate bag, one of them little white plastic bags.
Sure, okay.
I think it was a white plastic bag.
Okay.
Could have been clear, I don't think it was clear though. And it was just wrapped. And eventually he's talking to her when she's not there anymore.
What's he saying?
He goes, I told you I'd take you out. And this and that. I'm like, oh fuck. Now I'm an accessory. I don't want to be, but I'm in the house. Right. Now I'm an accessory. I didn't call the cops. I said, That night we ended up having to stay there. Me and my girl and the other 2 were staying with him. Uh-huh. Me and my girl ended up staying there because he told us to stay there. He slept next to the body in the bedroom.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So Matthew, after killing Jess, crawls in bed with her dead body. The rest of the clown posse sleeps in the next room. No one has the decency to leave the house and call for help. Let me take you back to the beginning of the story where I tell you about Chester. This is Matt, a scared, insecure little sociopath that has no problem lying, scamming, and killing to further his own agenda and get the attention he so craves.
And that right there got me even worse because he's a sick fuck. He said the Columbine and all them other had nothing on him. He said, I don't know. I'm afraid to watch this movie. The Collector, he gave me a movie to watch, The Collector, that he says that's nothing compared to what he could do. And the description of The Collector, he keeps body parts as trophies. It's just disgusting. I don't want somebody's body part as a trophy to bring in the next bit. No.
Right.
I don't know the movie. I'm still refusing to watch it. But, it's just... And then the next day, he cut up the body.
Okay. Tell me about that. What was his reason for cutting it up?
To get rid of it.
Okay, so he wasn't collecting parts from it.
But that's what when he told me about the movie first, I was like, don't tell me this. No, he wanted to get rid of the parts.
Sure.
The parts, I'm not sure where they're at.
Okay. So how did you guys get her into the tub?
It took 4 of us. It was only him and Andrew in the beginning trying, Then he asked me. I think I grabbed one of her legs to try. I don't know why I did it. I was scared of him.
Sure.
I didn't, you know what I mean? It's just a body.
Who's the four?
And then three of us. Andrew's a big boy. I don't know if you met Andrew.
Right, yeah.
Andrew's a big boy.
Okay.
With me, and I'm 190 pounds, I'm strong.
Mm-hmm.
With three of us trying to lift her, it was dead weight, no pun intended.
Right.
But it was, it was heavy. We couldn't get the thing in the tub. So Sharon helped, so we each grabbed a leg and an arm, got her in the tub. Finally, we had to drag her.
Okay.
He wanted her off the bed for some reason, and I was afraid, so
Sure, I understand.
She didn't want to do it, trust me.
Right. So then tell me about the cutting up. Who else cutting it off?
He had Andrew start, told him to do it.
What did Andrew do?
Started with, I'm trying to think.
What's he using to cut her up?
Diving knife, I think it was.
Okay.
I think it was a diving knife. He had about three. There was two swords. He tried with a sword first.
Who tried with the sword first?
Andrew.
Okay.
Tried with one of them big katana swords.
Right.
So Matthew cuts her abdomen, chokes her, then the three of them drag her to the bathtub and cut her up with a diving knife. How sick do you have to be to do something like that? What a nice little clown family. Let's see what Andrew has to say.
To Michigan in June of 2010. I lived up in Michigan with my mother-in-law and her husband until December of last year, at which point I moved in with Matt and Jess. They were together, before we got there. They continued to be a couple until early February. At that point, it started to be an on-off thing, and then by the end of February, it was just off.
Okay. Did Jess want you out of the apartment?
Yes and no. I mean, it was one of those weird situations where we wanted to move out because the strain of having a broken up couple in the house is hard on everyone. They would argue a lot, tempers would flare, and it wasn't healthy for anyone. I mean, emotionally speaking, it wasn't healthy for anyone.
What would they argue about?
Anything. Like, they argued about money. Occasionally, they would argue about my wife and I being there, but it was Jess who invited us to be there to begin with. And then she changed her mind later on, at which point we didn't have any place that we could go to. When we moved out of my mother-in-law's, it's actually her husband who owns the house, and he had said, when you guys move out, that's it, no moving back. So if she had kicked us out and we couldn't get an apartment or anything local, we had nowhere to go to.
When did you meet Chris Wright and Sharon Coe?
I'd say about 4 days before then, we met them at the library in Urbana.
Okay. And who was at the library with you?
It was me and my wife were there, and we ran into Chris and Sharon. You know the layout of the Urbana library?
No, I don't, but I'm somewhat familiar. I do.
Okay.
Describe it.
The computer room that's enclosed that has 5 computers in it. My wife and I were in there. Chris and Sharon came in. Chris saw I was playing a particular Facebook game that he also plays. He asked me how I was doing so well in it when he was having trouble. I gave him some pointers. We started talking. Then I saw he had a tattoo on his arm that was an Insane Clown Posse related. And I said, hey, you listen to ICP? He said, well, yeah. And we started talking like that. We decided we wanted to try to hang out with him. So we left the library and we went back to the house there. We told Matt that we met this guy and, he likes ICP and all that stuff. And he's like, well, are they still there at the library? And I said, yeah, they should be. They still had a good hour left on the computers. So he came with us. We drove back to the library. They were just getting ready to leave. We started talking.
So you talked with him there, and then you guys went and got Matt, and then brought Matt back to the library so that they can meet.
It's like I can't remember if the first time we went to their place or if the first time we went back to Jess's place, but the first time we had them over was when they met Jess.
Okay. What did they think of Jess?
It was kind of mixed reaction, really. On the one side, they say, well, she seems nice enough, but there were certain mannerisms of hers that got on their nerves. Jess liked to get really close to people and touch them without permission, like a hand on the shoulder and stuff like that. She ended up doing that to Chris, like stood next to him with a hand on his shoulder and was talking to him, and it got Sharon upset. She, didn't say anything right then, but when Jess went back into the bedroom, she said, man, I hate it when she does stuff like that.
What were you guys saying about Jess at that time?
Well, we said, look, this is Matt's ex. It's her place, so if she sets rules, we have to, live by them, basically. And we said that we were trying to get our own place to, be able to get away.
Did you talk about how you wish she wasn't around or in your guys' life?
That was the whole point of moving away, was so that we wouldn't have to deal with her anymore.
Well, I think more along the lines of talk about getting rid of her or killing her at that time.
Possibly in a joking manner.
Did you carry around a vial of almond oil or something like that, almond extract, that you said that, you could simply get rid of her by putting that in her drink, and she would... Okay, so you said that when?
I'd actually had that for a couple of weeks and just never done anything with it.
Well, I understand that, but you told Chris and Sharon that, though, right?
Yeah, I did.
Did you talk about that with Matt, too?
I did tell him that I had it. He knew that she was allergic to almond extract, so yeah.
So you guys, sounds to me like maybe you guys had somewhat been contemplating some of that up to that point.
Definitely not seriously.
Is it common for someone to carry almond extract then in their pocket?
No, it isn't.
Okay. So you would agree with this? That's not a common thing. Okay.
I would.
And if someone is potentially allergic to something, and there are comments being made that you like to have her killed, like to get rid of her, like to something like that, you could see, and then that person still ends up dead. You could see where we could be in a position to think maybe there was some more discussions about this, correct?
Yeah, but at the same time, Matt was allergic to peanut butter. We had peanut butter in the house all the time. We had candies with peanut butter all the time. And we joked at him whenever one of the person had a Reese's, we'd say, hey, look, it's chocolate death.
But
he would laugh at it.
But you didn't carry that around in your pocket. And you would joke with him about it. You weren't joking with Jess about having the almonds in your pocket and showing her how worried.
Actually, one time, yes, I did. We saw a ball, a cheese ball. It was almond and something else she said she was allergic to. And I said, hey, look, it's a little ball of death. And she started laughing. And I said, yeah. When I pulled the thing out of my pocket, I said, hey, look, it's a little ball of death. And she started laughing harder.
Why would you carry that around your pocket?
I don't know. Honestly, as a joke.
When did you start carrying it around in your pocket?
Can't remember if it was late January or if it was mid-February.
So this guy talks really casual about the brutal murder of Jessica. No remorse, nothing. He probably thinks he's the victim. He has a little vial of almond extract around his neck because he knows she's allergic. What a shitty guy do you have to be to have your own mom kick you out of the basement? I've heard enough. Let's get to the leader of this insane clown posse, Matthew Puccio.
Okay, what's your, it's Matthew?
Puccio.
I mean, is it Matthew or, okay, M-A-T-T-H-E-W? Okay, Matthew, what's your real name?
Star, 2 R's.
Okay, spell your last name.
P-U-C-C.
How old are you again?
25.
25. What's a good address for you?
I don't really know, it's just down here.
The one there in Urbana?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just put Hamilton, Ohio for now. Is it the house where you were at? Yeah. 318 North 11th Street? So you moved in there?
Yeah. Because I don't know the place it's situated. Because I'm in the posse, just...
You got a little one, do you?
Well, I used to have 4 little ones who died recently, so I'm trying to move to family.
Where was that at?
Texas. And then her older brothers have got died too.
What happened there?
She died of a ruptured artery in the brain, and...
Was you there when that happened? Do they know what caused that? That's rough.
And then Jacob, my son, his mom shook him too hard, and he's dying from bleeding from the brain.
Where's he at?
Texas as well. It's the same.
Wow.
So, all that has been going on since, yes.
Sure. A lot of stress, huh?
It doesn't help that I need my medicine.
What kind of medicine?
I take antipsychotics.
How long have you been doing that?
Since I was 15.
What's the highest grade you completed in school?
2 years of college.
So, oh wow, so you got 14 years, huh? Where'd you go to college at?
University of Phoenix, Axiom branch. It's the online program.
What we majored in?
Business administration. I was just wishing what was happening.
Okay, and I'll tell you, I do too right now. I'm not sure. I kind of came in the middle of this. All right. I declare that the following statement is made of my own free will without anyone having promised me anything or offered out to me any hope of reward, and I make this statement without any fear of physical harm, without anyone having offered to do me any favor, and without anyone promising me leniency. I further state that I am able to read and write the English language and have completed 14 years of school.
No, I do fear for my life about this.
From us?
My cousin.
No.
Oh.
They're saying we're not threatening to kill you. Who's your cousin?
The godfather of the Italian Mafia.
What's his name?
Giovanni Guerrero.
What's going on with him?
He's the one who ordered me to do all this because there was a text message that was sent to my phone that was forwarded from Jess putting a hit on me. And he told me if I didn't do it, he was going to kill me.
Why would he put a hit on you?
You know, he didn't, Jess did.
Why would Jess put a hit on you?
I don't know. She said she was so mad at me, she just wants me dead and she knows the people to do it.
Who was the people that she...
I don't know.
So how did your cousin find out about that?
Mutual friends were talking with him, and they forwarded him the message, and then he forwarded it to me.
Where's that? Where's he live at?
Sicily right now. He fled the country because of this.
Okay, so now let's take a look at what we know about Mr. Puccio thus far. These are the facts. He grew up in a suburb in Woodland, California. This is also the place where he met Andrew Forney. He moved to live with his grandparents. When he was 15, he traveled to Banning, California, to live with his biological dad. Around the same time, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was prescribed antipsychotics. The reunion with his father led to a physical altercation about a job application, and so it didn't work out. By now, his grandparents had moved to a smaller home, so Matt spent the next 3 years in group homes. Here, he got into a lot of fights with the other boys. At 18, he briefly moved to Virginia, where his brother was serving in the military. This is likely when he came up with the story of being a Marine, cause there's no record of it. From there, he moved around the country, traveling to Texas, Utah, Montana, and back to Texas. During that time, he fathered 4 children with 3 women and struggled in a custody dispute with his most recent girlfriend. Now, according to Puccio's testimony, his baby mama in Texas had shaken their baby so hard that it died from a brain aneurysm. I would like to refer to my earlier comment about taking a parental test, just in case anybody thought I was being overly harsh. It was while in Texas that Puccio said he eventually met Jessica on Facebook. Now, as to his state of mind, we can only speculate, but we're going to take a stab at it. Matthew was born in 1986, an era that had shed the innocence of the 50s and 60s. It's an era dominated by MTV, TV dinners, and latchkey kids. They were labeled as Generation X, the least parented and nurtured generation in U.S. history. Now, if you leave kids to their own devices in their formative years, some might thrive, but a lot of them will slip through the cracks, as I believe Matthew did. A likely scenario is that mom and pop would fight a lot, and there was usually alcohol involved. The kids would hide in their rooms or the basement to wait out the storm. It's important for kids to have a safe place, which is usually their home. So if this home is turned into a war zone, kids will wander and seek shelter elsewhere. They will go to the streets and meet kids in similar situations. Now, rules, the law of the jungle, Darwinism, survival of the fittest. They take bourbon from the liquor cabinet, steal money and cigarettes, and meet in obscure places like a train yard or under a bridge. In order to get a sense of security, they will tell stories. Not necessarily the truth, but any story that will elevate their standing in the pack. For example, how their cousin is the godfather of the Italian mafia. They get into fights a lot. Some they win, some they lose, and through this process, they find their ranking in the group. All are based on make-believe. At a point, mom and pop decide to get a divorce. But what about the kids? Daddy's new girlfriend doesn't want kids. Mommy can't possibly take care of them and pursue her career. So we ship them off to boarding schools, aunts and uncles, or, in Matthew's case, grandma and grandpa. So now, at the age of 12 or 13, they get ripped out of the little bubble that they had created for themselves and get shipped further to a new house. New caretakers in a new neighborhood. The grandparents, of course, oblivious to the wants and needs of a 13-year-old boy in the mid-90s, shift into gear like it's 1965. They provide home-cooked meals, Bible study, Jeopardy at 7, and do everything in their power to right the wrongs of their children. But their attempts were futile. Matthew has never had any sense of family values, so he seeks what he knows. He wanders, finds a pack of lost boys, disobeys any rules or curfews, and reasserts his freedom. He is now 14. His grandparents don't have it in them anymore to deal with the situation. So they call his dad and tell him there is something wrong with Matthew. They find a solution. Matt is going to live with his dad, where there is a psych evaluation in the wings to find out what the heck is wrong with this boy. So Matt goes to the psychiatrist and does what he does best. He churns out some bullshit stories and is promptly diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So now that that's out of the way, Matt will be medicated and all will be hunky-dory. Wrong, of course. Without the proper follow-up and intense counseling, situation spirals out of control. And Matt, now 15, ends up in several group homes where aggression and rivalry are an everyday occurrence. Then, as a gift, on your 18th birthday, you get kicked out. You are an adult now, an adult desperately looking for kinship and acceptance, which sadly is found in all the wrong places. Now, this does not excuse in any way, shape, or form the despicable actions of Matthew Puccio. What it does, though, is implicate others. Jessica died on the 20th of March due to the action of Matthew Puccio, but many others have blood on their hands. Now, Candace, Andrew's wife, was a piece of work. She disliked Jess, who gave her a roof over her head for the simple fact that Jess was cute, and she was not. For this fact, she was more than happy to go along with the murder plans. What a despicable human being. Let's see what she has to say for herself.
It was to celebrate Thanksgiving, and we were trying to figure out if we were going to move down there or not. I don't know who offered it. I don't know if it was Matt or Jess at the time, but all I know is that we were going down there to see how things would be. At first we got along, but then we started, I don't know why, but Jess and I didn't get along very well. I tried, I don't know what happened. But.
So the friendship side between you and Jess fell apart once you guys moved back down here. How long had it been? How long would you say you guys were friendly until it started turning bad?
About, I think, a week when we moved back down.
Okay. Would it be safe to say that you guys expressed your displeasure with Jess and how you guys didn't like her or care for her? Did you guys talk about wishing her gone with Chris and them?
Whenever I got mad, yeah, I did.
Did you guys talk about killing her with Chris and Sharon?
I did too. I mean, I got mad and I said stupid shit.
Mm-hmm. Like, what's the stupid shit you said?
Like, I did wish her gone. I got so mad at her. But after the fact, I didn't really, I don't know, I guess I wish she would have just either moved away or I didn't want this to happen.
I don't know about you, but I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. Not quite. We've heard from Chris, Andrew, and Candace now. Let's see what really happened. On the 29th of March, Jessica hadn't posted anything for 8 days. It was very out of the ordinary for her not to post on social media. So her mom, Sue, drives to her duplex in Urbana to check in on her. She knocks on the door, but there is no answer. Sue lets herself in. But she was not prepared for what she saw next. The house looked like a post-apocalyptic horror show. Her shoes stick to the Mountain Dew-drenched carpet. The house is littered with the carnage of fast food boxes and wrappers. Half-eaten food is infested with maggots, while flies darken the room. The smell is so overwhelming that Sue pulls her sweater over her nose while she scurries through the rooms looking for her daughter. The last place to check is the bathroom. Sue finds it locked and pounds on the door while calling out for Jessica. All for the buzzing of flies, it stays eerie silent. Sue hurries out of the house, and while she gasps for air on the sidewalk, she calls the landlord. He says he can open the bathroom door, but won't be there for another 4 hours. Sue drives home and awaits the call back from the landlord. It never comes. Instead, she gets a call from the local police department. The landlord had opened the door and had found Jessica in the bathtub, dead, partly dismembered. The house was empty, but they had found phone bills addressed to the following people: Andrew Forney, Candace Forney, and Matthew Puccio. They were looking for them now. After pinging their cell phones, it didn't take the cops long to locate the threesome in a neighboring town at their friend Linda's house.
shocking revelations about a gruesome murder in Urbana where a woman was dismembered. Now, 5 people were arrested, and our Susan Smith spoke with a woman who claimed she took some of the suspects in, claiming the killing was in self-defense. She's now live with us with more. Susan?
We're still waiting for 3 of the people accused in this Urbana murder to be brought back to Champaign County. But talking with one of the accused friends, she says the victim's boyfriend killed the woman to protect himself. The woman, who we will call Linda, wants to stay off camera. She claims that the victim's boyfriend, Matthew Puccio, is innocent. According to Linda, Puccio had intercepted emails from her Gmail saying that she put a contract out on his life.
I think that they should allow him to go. I mean, that boy, he wouldn't even hurt a fly. You know, the only reason why he did it was self-defense. If I was him, I would have probably done it too.
As of now, it's unclear if the woman is questioned by local authorities.
There's Linda. She and her mother harbor fugitives and help dump the body, yet they never get questioned. They roam free. If you're so naive to think that someone wouldn't hurt a fly when they show up at your door with body parts, at the least, you should be institutionalized. But in my opinion, they should go to prison for aiding and abetting. The DA dropped the ball on her.
Good evening, I'm Cheryl McHenry.
I'm John Paul James Brown is off. An Urbana woman suffered for hours before she was killed. That's according to the man who told us he's the one who killed her.
Newsletter 7's Jessica Hefner talked to the now confessed killer in the Tri-County Jail and has this exclusive interview. Jessica?
Well, there are 5 people in jail for the murder of Jessica Rea Sacco. I asked all 5 to talk to me about what happened, but only the main suspect, Matthew Puccio, agreed. And he says about that day is disturbing, and police are still evaluating how much of it they actually believe.
Why did you kill her?
I honestly don't know.
He was brought in from the jail in handcuffs. He told me he only agreed to this interview to tell his side of the story, of what his relationship with Jessica Rea Sacco was really like. He says her personality drew them together a year and a half ago.
Being there for me. When I was going through psychotic breaks, she held me and told me it'll be all right.
But the night of March 21st, they got into an argument. One he said started because he'd received text messages Sacco wanted him dead.
I said, if you want me out of your life, I can just do it myself.
What did she say?
I can't be selfish like that. You have 4 kids to think about.
That's when he claimed Sacco started begging him to kill her. A coroner ruled she died of suffocation. Police say he used a bag, but Puccio admitted that's not what happened first.
She was pleading with me to slash her throat, slash her wrist, do something. And I told her, no, I can't do that to you. And she told me to stab her then, so I just held my hand above her stomach. She grabbed my wrist and pulled it into her stomach.
So how did the bag get into this situation? The bag that police say you put over her head to suffocate her.
That didn't come into the situation until about 6.5, 7 hours later after I stabbed her.
Puccio claims he held the knife in front of her torso, but she reached for it, and he claims she made him stab her. He also said he wrapped the wound, held her, and, in his words, gave her a final kiss.
She asked me if I could just let her die already. I told her there's only one way I can do that. It's not going to be pleasant.
He cried as he described grabbing a plastic bag and putting it over her head. Weak from the knife wound, he said it only took seconds.
I just laid next to her and cried. Kept telling her I'm sorry.
For hours, he debated his next move. He then says he called 4 friends, also in jail now, for help.
Why? Why cut up her body?
I was scared.
He said they dumped the body parts in some woods in Kentucky. He then went to Hamilton to wait. It would be 8 days before police would find her body. During that time, Puccio said he tried to come to terms with what he did. When police came for him, he says he confessed.
We have no right to take someone else's life. It don't matter what the scenario is.
But you did.
I know. And I have to live with that.
A friend of Sacco's told me she'd been urging her to kick Puccio out of her apartment not long before she was killed. Puccio told me he plans to plead guilty and deserves the death penalty.
So, as it seems, we got it all wrong. It's all Jessica's fault. I do agree with him, especially the last part. He deserves the death penalty. But instead, the charges for Matthew Puccio were abuse of a corpse, gross abuse of a corpse, obstructing justice, felonious assault, murder, and tampering with evidence. Matt first pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Later, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison for the murder with the possibility of parole after 30 years. He also got 12 years for the other charges and 7 years for sexual assault of a minor. Apparently, he had found a 14-year-old girlfriend, all to be served consecutively. Andrew Forney was charged with failure to report a crime, abuse of a corpse, gross abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, obstructing justice, complicity to tampering with evidence, and 2 counts of possession of criminal tools. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 years. Candace Forney pleaded guilty to single counts of failure to report a crime, complicity to tampering with evidence, and obstructing justice. She will serve 6 years in prison. Oh yeah, and she had to forfeit the creeper van. Christopher Wright pleaded to single counts of failure to report a crime and abuse of a corpse. He got 4 years. Sharon Cook pleaded guilty to single counts of failure to report a crime. She has to serve 3 years. All but Matt Puccio have served their time and roam free. I would like to leave you with this last thought. Some parents like Sue give it their all and don't succeed. And some parents don't give a damn and succeed in ruining their children. So folks, don't make light of it. The road of parenthood is a rocky one. I leave you with the words of Eminem. You only got one shot. Do not miss a chance to blow, because opportunity comes once in a lifetime.